$200 billion. I mean, that's a number that's almost impossible to really wrap your head around, right? But that's the estimated net worth of Elon Musk, putting him right up there as one of the wealthiest people on the entire planet. Yeah, it's so big it almost doesn't feel real. So the big question is, how does a single person even begin to build an empire on that kind of scale? Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to break down the key steps, the strategies that took him from just a kid who really loved to code to, one of the most influential and, let's be honest, controversial figures of our time. Okay, so let's rewind. It all starts, as you might expect, way back in his early years. This is the story of how he went from coder to his very first millions. And you can see that entrepreneurial spark was there from the very beginning. I mean, get this. Born in South Africa, he taught himself how to code. And at just 12 years old, he not only created his own video game, a space shooter called Blastar, but he actually sold it. That was his first real taste of turning, lines of code into actual cash. And right here, in this early phase, you can see a pattern emerge, a kind of blueprint he uses over and over again. Let's call it the build and reinvest formula. First, he co-founds a company called Zip2. He sells it and walks away with a cool $22 million. Now, for most people, that's it. You're set for life. But not him. He takes that money and pours it all into his next big idea, X.com, which, you might know, becomes PayPal. Then, when eBay buys PayPal, he gets a massive payday, $165 million. And this is the absolutely crucial part. He reinvests everything. He literally gambles his entire fortune on the next, even riskier idea. So what do you do after a payday like that? Well, this is where the ambition just explodes. It goes from a terrestrial scale to an interstellar one. We're not talking about building the next big app anymore. He was quite literally aiming for the stars. He takes all that money from the PayPal sale, and in 2002, he found SpaceX. And let's be really clear here. The goal wasn't just, hey, let's build some rockets. No way. The goal was to completely upend the economics of space travel, all to achieve a mission that sounded, frankly, like pure science fiction, making humanity a multiplanetary species by colonizing Mars. And the progress from that wild idea was just incredibly fast. I mean, after some really tough early failures that nearly bankrupted the entire company, they finally get the Falcon 1 to orbit in 2008. Just 4 years after that, their Dragon spacecraft is visiting the ISS. And then, by 2020, SpaceX is launching actual human astronauts, something that, until then, was pretty much only done by massive government agencies. And now, today, the big focus is on Starship, the vehicle that's supposed to make that original Mars mission a reality. Okay, so while all of this is happening, while he's literally looking up at the stars, he's also got his focus firmly planted on transforming things right here on our own planet. So let's pivot to his other massive venture, one you've definitely heard of, Tesla. Now, the most important thing to get about Tesla is that it was never, ever just about building cool-looking cars. When Musk got involved back in 2004, the mission statement was way bigger. It was about accelerating the entire world's transition to sustainable energy. The cars, they were just the first really visible, really cool step in a much bigger plan. And the strategy was pretty brilliant, actually. You start with a super high-end, expensive car, the Roadster, to prove that electric cars can be fast and desirable. Then you take the profits from that and you build more affordable mass-market cars like the Model 3 and the Model Y. And you know what? It worked. This whole approach basically forced the entire global auto industry to pivot and start taking electric seriously. But let's go back to that core mission for a second, because it really is bigger than just cars. See, Tesla is also a huge player in generating and storing renewable energy. We're talking about their solar panels, the Powerwall home battery. They're building out an entire ecosystem for sustainable energy, not just a car company. So you'd think that colonizing Mars and completely changing the world's transportation system would be enough for one person, right? Well, apparently not, because his focus just kept expanding into fields that sound even more like science fiction. If you look at all his major ventures together, you start to see a common thread, a pattern. Each one of them uses technology to try and solve some massive, almost impossible-sounding problem. So you've got SpaceX for Mars, you've got Tesla for sustainable energy, then there's Neuralink working on brain-computer interfaces, The Boring Company trying to solve city traffic with tunnels, and of course his huge acquisition of Twitter, which he's rebranding as X. The goals are all over the map, but the pattern of tackling huge problems is always the same. Okay, so when you step back and you look at this entire universe of companies, what does it all add up to? What is the legacy that's actually being built here? Well, one way to put it comes from a source that calls him a visionary entrepreneur, combining engineering skills with bold business strategies. And I think that really nails it, you know? It's that specific combination that's so rare. He has this deep, hands-on understanding of the engineering, combined with just an absolutely insane appetite for risk. That blend really defines his whole playbook. So, from a little kid selling his first video game, all the way to building reusable rockets and kickstarting the EV revolution, it has been one heck of a journey. And all of this leaves us with one final, really big question to chew on. What happens when one single person's vision starts to actually shape the future for all of us?